What is the future of Black liberation, especially in this world of authoritarianism, with Trumpism?
Well, it's problematic at best, in part because of the process by which Jim Crow began to retreat in the 1950s, whereby the internationalists amongst us, led by the late great Paul Robeson, were tossed overboard, ignoring the lesson, that is to say, the leaders who accepted that Faustian bargain, ignoring the lesson that what had rescued us from slavery and Jim Crow in the first instance was precisely internationalism. And so we're faced with a real dilemma with regard to Trumpism. I take seriously the fact that he got 77 million votes. I think too many of our friends on the left make excuses, weak excuses, for the 77 million who voted for him. I heard a chap say the other day that when they voted for Trump, they thought they were voting for a reduction in the price of eggs. They did not necessarily expect mass layoffs, complicated relations with NATO allies, so-called, et cetera. I find that irresponsible, but it's typical of the kinds of excuses that are made for the Trump base and also for folks on the left. It's rather extraordinary that they ignore the concept of settler colonialism. How else would you explain the system that befell North America some centuries ago with the uprooting of the indigenous population, not unlike what occurred in Australia, New Zealand, historic Palestine, Algeria, Kenya, South Africa? In fact, there's a prize-winning book, an edited collection on settler colonialism by a prize-winning scholar that deals with settler colonialism all over the world, except the United States of America. And so,
Mhm.
it's just like, for example, to give another example, in Australia, left, right, and center, there's this process known as land acknowledgements, where spokespersons before audiences, before meetings or commence, they talk about whose land this originally was. Land acknowledgements are not even common on the left in the United States of America. And I think it has something to do with the overestimation of the so-called revolution of 1776. Now, we know that there has been an explosion of literature on 1776 by the late Tyler Stovall, one of the most garlanded historians in the profession. His book, White Freedom, the late Charles Mills, the former Northwestern philosopher, his book, Racial Contract, Ishmael Reed, the dean of Black intellectuals, and his spoof and send up of the Disney come Broadway extravaganza Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Raoul Peck, who might be the leading filmmaker on the left, although, of course, naturally, since he's Black, most people in the left in the United States have never heard of him, despite his really stirring docudrama, The Young Karl Marx, not to mention Lumumba, and of course, with regard to settler colonialism, his HBO special, Exterminate All the Brutes. Now, when I mention HBO, our sectarian friends on the left feel that's a way to discredit him. And of course, they don't, obviously, they haven't seen The Young Karl Marx, for example. And of course, it's part of this underestimation of our struggle. I've heard folks say that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is some sort of gift from the ruling class to divide the working class. In fact, you've had a leader of the New York-based weekly The Nation, not to mention a close comrade of Bernie Sanders, take that wrong-headed point of view. Instead of seeing DEI as a democratic demand coming from the grassroots to circumvent the class collaboration that inherits in settler colonialism. But because folks don't understand class collaboration, they don't understand settler colonialism, that leads them to these sorry capitulations to the most backward aspects of US culture. So the sum and substance is, what is the future for Black liberation? I would say right now, for me, it's unclear.